We have Miss Rukmini Walker. She is going to present on the topic on Hindu perspective on spirituality as foundation for right blend of intention and intuition of feminine heart, paving path for sustainable development. A brief introduction about her. Miss Rukmini Walker, we know her. She is, I know her personally when, with the term Urban Devi, when Urban Devi comes into my mind. So she's an activist in women's spiritual empowerment. She is also based out of Bhakti Center in New York City, where she's a member of the board of directors. Miss Walker, she's also featured in a film called Women of Bhakti, and she writes and teaches and leads workshops and retreats internationally. We warmly welcome you, Miss Rukmini Walker. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be with all of you. Powerful voices and activists. Thank you so much. In my experience, authentic spirituality of whatever tradition, every tradition empowers us as women and empowers all people with a vision to see the interconnectivity of everyone and to act accordingly. Lord Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, the well-known sacred text of India, that one who is wise sees the same vibrant spirit essence or soul animating every individual living being. And this includes all human beings and even the animals, the trees, the plants, and the aquatics. I was so moved to see that picture of the bird. Oh, my goodness, the picture of the bird with the belly filled with plastics. How heartbreaking, yeah. So every bird, every living being is as beloved to the Supreme Lord as I am, or as you are. And this kind of inclusive vision of interconnectivity impels each of us to act in the world with an expanded worldview, with interests not confined to my own country, ethnic community, race, gender, or religious bias. When we act from a place of awakened compassion and empathy, feeling the pains and pleasures of others as our very own. So I think there's a stereotype about Hindu women that we are passive, silent sufferers of our destiny, even if it brings discrimination and abuse. But in fact, exemplary spiritual awakened women of many faiths, both today and in the past, have stood up to injustice and spoken truth to power. Sita Devi called out Ravana as he attempted to seduce her. Draupadi called out the revered Bhishma Dev for not upholding righteous dharma. The brilliant Gargi called out the sage Yajnavalkya when she defeated him in debate in the court of King Janaka. So that was ancient times, right? So today as well, there are empowered women who are not afraid to speak truth to power. In fact, when the voices of women are silenced, it opens the door for children and women themselves to be abused. When 51% of the voices of our world, the voices of the women, are not empowered, we impoverish our cultures and our world. Today, women excel in every field, including science, technology, engineering, and math. But often, extraordinary women in the top of their fields do their work differently and perhaps better than men, with more empathy, more deep listening, more EQ or emotional intelligence, and often in a mood of servant leadership, uplifting the world, as many of these women have uplifted their own children, sometimes as single moms, often despite great hardship. I want to tell you about one such woman. She was not a leader in any groundbreaking research or STEM technology. She was a simple, uneducated woman from a small village in Maharashtra in India. She died last year at the age of 73, but she graced our world as a living example of what it means to be an extraordinary human being. Sindhu Tai Saptal was married to a man 20 years her senior, When she was 19, she already had 2 children and was pregnant with her 3rd. A man in her village was sexually abusing women there, and Sindhutai went to the police as a whistleblower. The abusive man, out of revenge, told Sindhutai's husband that the child she was carrying was his and not her husband's child. Her ignorant husband became furious and beat her to unconsciousness, and then threw her into a cowshed to make it appear as though she'd been trampled to death by the cows. But a compassionate cow, being a mother herself, stood over Sindhutai and protected her as she gave birth to her daughter alone in that cow pen. Sindhutai cut the umbilical cord herself with a sharp rock that was lying on the ground nearby. Such an amazing story, yeah? And then later, she wandered alone and felt completely unwanted with her newborn baby. As she stood near a rail station, she contemplated suicide and thought to throw herself and her baby before an oncoming train. She sat down to rest under the shade of a tree, feeling lost and dejected. As she looked up, she noticed that the tree had one broken branch above her, just dangling by a thread. And she thought, I am also broken, like the branch of this tree. But this tree, although it's broken, is giving me shade. Like this tree, I can also do something to relieve the pain of others. So she walked back to the rail station where she noticed an old man who was crying out from thirst. She gave him water to relieve his suffering. Over time, she began to gather orphan children and care for them as her own. And then she began to receive compassionate donations from well-wishers, and gradually she opened several orphanages. And eventually she became known as the mother of the orphans. After some years, her former husband came to one of her orphanages. He was destitute and he asked for her help. She told him that she had only one relationship with others now, that of a mother. And if he wanted to come and live there as one of her children, she would accept him. And then later, when people would come to tour her children's home, she would introduce her former husband to them, saying, "This is my oldest child, and he is a very bad child." So Sindhutai rechanneled her experience of abuse in her own life to serve those most in need, without discrimination and without any malice. So I think we can all be inspired by her example and also pay it forward. Whatever God-given gifts we've received, whatever empowerment we've been given, it can also be redirected and mobilized to serve others and the world around us. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rukmini Walker. Thank you so much for, I was just reflecting on every time I hear about Sindhutai's story, it just warms my heart. She was alone, but yet she gave a new life to more than 2,500 orphans. Thank you for bringing out her example and also important lessons of empowered women from Bhagavad Gita, which is our ancient text. Thank you so much. It was very heartwarming and inspiring talk, how women can make changes, even outside, how physically a hurt woman can be, but she can just move mountains. So thank you so much for your talk. Talking about faith, our next question, I think, is directed towards Ms. Rukmini. So the question is, how can spirituality help young women leaders tune into the divine energy and get empowered for responsible action?
Thank you so much. This was such an illuminating panel. I feel so inspired to be a listener here. Deep listening is one of the qualities of a woman. So I was thinking that, when a woman considers herself sacred and beloved to her family, to her community, but also to the divine, then she sees herself in a different way. I'm a spiritual being. I'm very beloved to that supreme beloved. So I think Bhagavad Gita talks about 3 secrets. First of all, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, that you are spirit. We are all spirit. All living beings are of the same spirit essence. And second of all, how can we access that spiritual identity? By action in devotion, by love in action, by action in gratefulness. This is bhakti yoga. So that would be the second secret, I would say, from Bhagavad Gita. And the third is where Krishna reveals in the very end of Bhagavad Gita that you are so beloved to me. You are my beloved. So that, again, the supreme beloved is revealing that you are so beloved. In that way, we see ourselves as sacred. We see our contributions, our innovations as sacred. And in that way, divinity can work through us. We can be instruments of the divine in whatever we're doing in the world, in science or just in our own household. So thank you. That would be my answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your for bringing and highlighting the importance of Bhagavad Gita and what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita.